Let me ask you something. What if you could get all the benefits of a traditional sauna right in your backyard without spending thousands of dollars or committing to a permanent installation? Sounds too good to be true, right? Well, today I'm sharing my experience with a Sweat Tent, a portable, wood-fired sauna that's affordable, easy to set up, and delivers an authentic sauna experience. If you've been on the fence about investing in a sauna or looking for a more budget-friendly option, stick around. This might just be the solution you've been waiting for. And if you wait until the end, I'm going to share with you a couple of outtakes and behind-the-scenes footage and some tips and tricks that will really help you if you decide to give the Sweat Tent a try, so stick around until the end. Sauna bathing is one of the best things you can do for your health. It improves circulation, boosts recovery, and helps your body detox. But let's face it, traditional saunas can be expensive, bulky, and impossible to move once installed. I know, because I have 2 of those in my backyard. And while portable options exist, they're often flimsy, slow to heat, or rely on electric stoves that don't quite hit the authentic sauna feel. For me, a great sauna experience is all about heat intensity, longevity, and that real wood-fired magic. A typical barrel sauna can set you back upwards of $7,000, and you're stuck with it in one spot. That's why I was so intrigued when I heard about Sweat Tent, a wood-fired sauna that promises to reach 220 degrees Fahrenheit, is easy to transport, and costs a fraction of the price. When my Sweat Tent arrived, I was impressed right out of the box. It came with everything I needed: a durable insulated tent, a powerful wood stove, heavy-duty carrying bags, and even sauna rocks to pour water over. Setup was surprisingly quick, think camping pop-up tent, but way sturdier. My wife helped me the first time, but honestly, I could have done it solo in about 10 minutes. Pro tip though, place it on a hard surface like concrete for better stability and cleanliness. There is nothing, we first considered putting it on the grass on our lawn, but after a while it would have turned into a muddy mess. So now we put it on a concrete slab and it's so much easier getting in and out without having to clean your feet or anything. It's a game changer, so consider that. Now the stove that it comes with has to be seasoned first, but that's fairly straightforward, and once inside, it got the tent blazing hot. I measured 180 degrees Fahrenheit within 20 minutes using just 3 logs of wood. Add a couple more and you're pushing 220 degrees. Real heat stress territory, that is. And the best part, the temperature held steady for almost an hour. In fact, it was so hot during one of my sessions that I had to get out at the 20-minute mark, take a break for a minute before I could return. I felt like I was passing out. So it gets really, really hot, and I love it. Now, but here is what makes the Sweat Tent a game changer for me. It's portable and easy to set up. So whether you're in your backyard or on a camping trip, you can have a sauna ready to go in no time. And the last part is incredibly interesting if you have an RV or enjoy camping regularly, because you can literally pack that thing up in a bag. There is one for the tent, one for the stove, and you bring it with you. And you have your sauna, your personal sauna session at your campground. That's amazing. Number 2, the heat performance is just incredible. Most saunas take forever to warm up, like 45 minutes to an hour, if you want to consider that forever. But if you're crunched on time, it feels like forever. But this one gets there in about 20 to 30 minutes and hold its heat for an extended period. And if you just add 1 or 2 more logs of firewood, it gets blazingly hot on the inside. Number 3, the interior is super spacious. The one we got is the regular one. It's a 4-person tent, and it measures 6 by 6 by 7 feet. So it's a 6 by 6 square and it's 7 feet tall. So you can actually stand up and walk around on the inside, stretch out, and comfortably fit 4 adults, especially if you decide to add a second bench. We have 1 bench on the inside that fits like 2 adults and a kid, but if you add a second bench, you can easily fit 4 adults or even 4 adults and 2 children if you want to. The materials used, and that's important for me because, I pay attention to VOCs and all of those things. They are durable and non-toxic. There was no off-gassing. Usually whenever you get like a fabric tent or whatever, you have this funky chemical smell in the beginning that typically fades as you use it, and that's why one of the reasons why I typically let stuff air out once I got it. This one, not so much. Didn't smell anything from the get-go, and it is actually, the company says they use non-off-gassing materials, non-toxic materials that are still solid enough in construction that will likely last forever. Especially love the heavy-duty zippers that glow in the dark, so you can see it at night when you enjoy sauna bathing at night, so you know where the zippers are, so you can easily get in and out of the sauna. And the wood stove, it delivers that authentic primal heat you just can't get from electric saunas. I really like that. It's absolutely it's different. You know, it delivers that real sauna experience that you don't quite get in a sauna with an electric stove. The only downside, well, it's not a steam sauna per se. Yes, you get sauna rocks, 20 pounds of them in a basket that you can put on top of the stove and then pour water over it. But I think that you don't get quite enough sauna rocks to allow the water that you pour over to fully evaporate. I had it, unless I pour it really, really, really slowly, most of the water just runs off on the floor. It eventually evaporates, but you don't get quite that high humidity that you would get from a stove that has 100 pounds of sauna rocks, where there's a lot of surface area for the water to evaporate. That said, it still delivers a killer sweat session. I started sweating after 5 minutes, and I knew it was not from the humidity in the air. It was all the water inside of my body that tried to escape in an attempt to keep me cool and prevent me from overheating. Now, if you're someone who loves sauna bathing but doesn't want the commitment or expense of a traditional setup, the Sweat Tent is a no-brainer. It's perfect for outdoor spaces, RV owners, or anyone who wants to make sauna sessions a regular part of their wellness routine without breaking the bank. So, is the Sweat Tent worth it? I would say absolutely. At $1,500, it's significantly more affordable than a barrel infrared sauna and doesn't skimp on performance. Plus, it's portable, durable, and just feels like an authentic sauna experience. And if you're ready to give it a try, use my code KUMMER100, that's one word, for $100 off your purchase. Trust me, you love it as much as I do. And hey, if you have any questions or want to see more of my setup process, drop a comment below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more reviews, and hit that bell icon so you don't miss my next one. Happy sweating! Now, with the main review out of the way, let me share a couple of things that we learned as part of our setup process and while using the Sweat Tent for the past few weeks. One is, when you get everything and unpack everything, make sure you open the stove and get everything out from the inside, because the flute that makes up the chimney basically is made up of individual components you can stack together, kind of like Lego, and they're all inside of the stove. And when we first set everything up, we actually forgot one of those modules inside of the stove, and we seasoned the stove actually with this thing inside. Doesn't really matter because it gets exposed to the heat anyway, but make sure you get everything out from the inside before you season the oven. The second thing is, there are actually extendable feet that fold in on the inside of the stove. Make sure you extend them properly. I didn't know that they were there because I didn't turn the stove around, and I tend to not read the manual when I get stuff, but extend that so that the oven has some separation from the ground before you season the oven. Speaking of seasoning the oven, you have to season the oven. The manual says it very clearly, and it's not one of those things I'm like, yeah, whatever, I don't need that. Yes, you do, because there are, lubricants and some other components on the stove from the manufacturing process that you want to burn off on the outside before you move the stove inside of your tent. So do that, put in a couple of logs of firewood, burn it hot, and just let it cool down before moving it back into the tent, or before moving it into the tent. That's super important and not something you want to skip. When you reassemble the stove on the inside of the tent, make sure those flute components are properly stacked together. They are tight, because what we did is, I didn't realize, but when I readjusted kind of the stove, the position of the stove, so that the flute would stick out the tent on the top, something must have come a little bit loose. And during the first 2 sauna sessions, I noticed there was smoke developing inside of the tent that escaped from somewhere from those flute components. So make sure when you put them back together that they are snug, that they are super tight and pushed all the way in. Important, otherwise you're gonna smoke yourself and you're gonna turn into a smoked salmon. The next thing you want to pay attention to is the length of your logs. The ones that you can purchase directly from Sweat Tent are cut to a size that fit perfectly inside of the stove. We just got regular, there is a standard size. I don't know exactly what the length is, but there is a standard length that logs are cut to from Ace Hardware around the corner, and they fit, but barely. They are just cut so that, if you put them in a slight angle, you might not be able to close the door. So make sure you measure the inside of the stove, or you can look it up on the manual, and then check before you purchase firewood. Speaking of firewood, make sure you have a reasonably priced supply, because you need a couple of logs per session. Now, we pay approximately $7.50 here at the local hardware store. I haven't checked if they can get them cheaper. There probably is a way if you buy them in bulk to get them cheaper, but let's assume a bundle is $7.50 and you need somewhere between 2 to 5 logs, depending on how hot you want to get the sauna and for how long it should stay hot. When I go in and I want to go all out, blazing inferno kind of sauna session, I calculate with 4 to 5 logs. And typically what I do is I heat up the oven with 2 logs or 3 logs maybe, and then I add 1 or 2 more when I get in to really get that the inside of the tent to 220 degrees Fahrenheit or slightly above that. So really, really hot. So make sure you take the cost of your firewood into account, because likely you're going to pay slightly more for your firewood than you pay for electricity, depending on where you are. Here in Georgia, electricity is cheap. California might be a different story, but take that into account. Now, speaking of heat, one of the things that I remember from sauna bathing back in the days was that if you sit on low, it's less hot. If you sit on a higher bench, it's hotter. You know, your head is typically exposed to the highest heat. So very often when it gets too hot, you know, I tend to like lean forward to get my head to a lower level basically, so it's not exposed to as much heat. Inside the sweat tent, it doesn't really matter where you are, it's just hot everywhere, depending on obviously, you know, how much wood you burn, how much, you know, air you let into the stove, etc. But the point is, the oven or the stove radiates heat in all directions, so you can even feel the burn on your shins, and lowering your head doesn't really make a difference. So you have to play it smart with how much wood you put in, how much you open the air inlet, how much you open the flap on the side of the tent, because airflow and the amount of wood you put in control how hot it's gonna get. So don't overdo it and then realize that lowering your head or sitting on the floor is not gonna make a difference at all, because it's still hot there regardless of where you are. On the bright side, I consider this a good thing because you get even heat distribution. You can get that 220 degrees almost anywhere in the tent. Doesn't really matter if you stand up and walk around, sit on the bench, or, you know, curl up in the corner, you're gonna be sweating. So that's a good thing. Now, if you want to learn even more about the sweat tent, check out my detailed blog review on michaelkummer.com. With that, we're gonna wrap it up. I hope you like this video. If you do, give it a thumbs up. I love the sweat tent. I'm sure you love it too. It's inexpensive comparatively speaking, delivers great heat performance, and it's just overall an excellent sauna. So keep sweating or start sweating if you're not into sauna bathing yet, and I hope I'll see you in the next video.